Okay, good morning. So this morning in Mr. Hashem we're finishing off Shin Yud Ches, the famous simon about Bishul on Shabbos. We're up to the very last Seif Yud Tes. Says the Mechaber, Osa lo tuach shemen v'shum al hatzli. You're not allowed to, I think the English word for this is to baste, B-A-S-T-E, which means to spread oil or other liquids on the roast. Also, lo tuach shemen v'shum al hatzli. You can't baste oil and garlic on this roasted piece of meat when it's in front of the fire. Even if it's been roasted before Shabbos, because the concern, of course, is that the shum and the shemen will cook. Okay, says the Mishnah Berurah, Keneged Hamadura, lav dafka. It doesn't literally have to be against opposite the fire. You can actually remove the shpud, the spit from the meat. So long as the meat is still very hot, then you're going to have a problem. And even if you put it afterwards on a ka'ara shul klisheni, you're putting it on the sort of the serving dish, which is a klisheni, gamkein osa, you're still going to have a problem. That dava gush, a solid matter of food, which is yad seledis by, afilu b'klisheni mevashel. As we've discussed before, that's the famous machlokes, whether you got a piece of meat which is a dava gush, and you put it into klisheni. Then there are poskim who say that still cooks. So even if you take it away from the fire, this piece of roasted meat, and you put oil and garlic on top of it, there are those poskim who say that it will still cook the oil and the garlic. However, says the Mishnah Berurah that within this particular situation, if it's in a klisheni, we can be mekel. Why? First of all, there are those poskim who say that if it's not in a kli rishon, but the meat has been transferred to a klisheni, then even though it's a dover gush, it's not going to cook. And here we're dealing with some garlic and some oil, which is a raw thing which has not been cooked previously. But for oil which is congealed, i.e. it's like our butter on jacket potato we spoke about yesterday, the post can allow that. Well, here as well, this is for oil which has previously been cooked and is now congealed to make some sort of lard, you can actually apply that to the meat, even if it's keneged madura on the fire, because this oil, which has become lard, you have previously cooked it, and like we said yesterday, the dover yovish shekvanis bashal ein boy shuv mishum bishul, right? Ein bishul acha bishul, and therefore, if it's previously been cooked, we're not worried to put it on, even if it's keneged hamadura. And if you've got a second concern of that of noilad, that's also not a problem. Because it's not forming like we spoke about yesterday. If you take ice and you crush it, according to one of the opinions, the problem is noilad, you're creating a new entity. Well, here, but if you take your ice, for example, and you put it in your drink, and it's not nikar in itself, it's not recognizable, it just dissolves into the drink itself, then it's not be'ain, you haven't got a problem. Well, so too over here. If you're taking pre-cooked oil, you haven't got a problem of bishul, because ain't bishul acha bishul. You haven't got a problem of noilad, because the oil is sort of just being absorbed into the meat. So you haven't got a problem. So, mishum noilad, there's no problem. Given the nivla ba'bosa v'ein be'ain. Right? So there's no so long as you don't crush it with your hands. But if you just apply a bit of this lard, this shuman, this congealed shuman onto the meat, and it's absorbed into the meat, so there's no problem of noilad either. Okay, we're at the end of the first wide line in Sif Yutes. And therefore you're allowed to apply some goose fat to the meat, and if you're allowed to apply it to cooked foods, kagoin lokshen, the noodles, or erbizin, here's, and these are, he says at the bottom, they're doichan, and different types of grain, millet, shenesunim al gabe ka'ara, and therefore you can put your butter, this is a very good example, of onto the noodles or onto the meat or whatever it is, afshehu rosech, even though these items are hot still. But only put on sort of bit by bit, small bits, so therefore it will be absorbed into the food. Continues the Mishnah Berurah, three wide lines down. One person brings the fire, one person brings the wood, and one person brings the pot, one person brings the water, the meat, the spices, another guy comes along and stirs it all. Kulam chayavim. Each one has done a maisa. The guy who puts the fire on has been over the issa of mavir. When he brings a coal, it's fanning the coal. And the guy who puts the wood on, Kain of Rashi. The problem is mavir because you're causing this piece of wood to burn. And all the others have been over the issa of bishul. They're all contributing. This guy puts in the water, this guy puts in the meat. Everyone's contributing and doing some sort of issa of in the rest of them of bishul. For gam megis nami mitamze, the guy stirring it is also being over the issa of bishul. Shekala issa dava mitzarche bishul, because anyone who does any aspect of the cooking harizeh mavashal. He's been over the issa of bishul, or kameshikos of a Rambam, like the Rambam says, what's he done wrong? So we're talking about a new pot. We've spoken about this before, that you can actually finish off the pots, because in those days when they would make their pots, you put it in the kiln and that would finish it off. He says in 122 that doesn't really apply nowadays. We can put new kalim on top of the fire. We're not really worried about that. Nowadays, they're finished off by the time they come to us. So there's never an issue of sort of finishing off this makbeh patish of putting a new pot on a fire. We're not worried about that. Okay, continues the Mishnah Berurah. Gemara Sham v'ayim b'migdalos. Echad nosen hakadera. It says there that one person puts the kadera on. Ve'echad nosen hasamayim. Ve'echad nosen hazaboso. Ve'echad nosen hasatavlin. Ve'echad nosen ha'aitzim. Ve'echad hovei sa'or. So again, all different people contributing different things. Uba acher v'hegis. And then one guy comes along and stirs it. So different to what we just said. So what's the difference? That's the correct girsa according to the Gan, who's his magia in the Tosefta. In other words, there are different girsas over there. So either way, you've got to explain why whoever is chayiv is chayiv. So in the first girsa, you're explaining that every single person did a maisa, either of bishul or of havara or whatever it is. According to the second girsa, it's only that everyone put things in the pot, but the last guy came along. If I put things into a cold pot, which is not yet on a flame, the flame is not yet lit, I haven't done anything. So according to the other girsa, it's only the last people who comes along and strikes the match and puts the flame on, and then all the cooking is done. But the person who originally put the water in or the food in has not yet done anything, so therefore it'd be potter. So different girsas of the Gemara there. Because of Arav HaMagid the Divrei HaKol, Kol She'ein Bishul Chiyuv, whenever there isn't a Chiyuv of Bishul, for example, if it's already fully cooked, Ein Hagos Chayiv. If it's fully cooked, then stirring it will not be a problem. Or Beis Yosef Kosov B'Shem HaKolboy, the Cheshi Alo Eish Chayiv Bagosa, Afidu B'Mevushul Kol Tzorchai. That's true generally, but if it's on the flame, then any type of stirring is a problem, even if it's Mevushul Kol Tzorchai. And I think they explain in the footnotes because it's a gezerah against those which are not fully cooked. Because lamaisa, if it's cooked, it's cooked. But it's a chashash that there might be parts of the things which are not fully cooked. Kli bishul shelanu, our cooking apparatus, shekorin samavar. So that's like a kettle or an urn or something like that. Shehuchem erev Shabbos, which is heated up before Shabbos. Also little mimenu mayim b'Shabbos k'she'ena garf min ha'gecholim. That you can't take water from this type of kettle where the coals have not been taken away. Ken calls b'Sefer Tosefes Yerushalayim Le'el Simon Rishon Gimel V'ayin Sham Shehevi B'zeh B'Shem Yerushalmi to Kama Sham to Mulya She'en Agar. If this kettle, which has not been removed, all the coals have not been removed, Ein Sheisim Mele B'Shabbos, you can't drink from it on Shabbos. Hatam, and the reason is Mipnei Shehu Osu Perokim, because it's made out of parts. V'hu Misyare Shema Yis'akel Peruka V'hu Moisif Maim. The concern is that the parts will move away. You'll come to add water to it. ולפי זה יש לזוהר כשיושב לשתות מן הכלי בישל שלנו קודם שקיע ובאמצע קידוש לאו היום שלא ישתות ממנו עוד. That you shouldn't drink more from it because we're concerned that you might come to add water. He's got a note in footnote 125 that nowadays are the urns that we use on Shabbos. We don't have these concerns. They're not made of parts. We're not worried you're going to be mosif water on Shabbos. He quotes Rabbi Moshe. There's a lot of discussion about that, but in short, the poskim he brings are pretty makel about the urns that we use nowadays. Okay, so that is the end of Shin Yud Ches and Hilchas Bishul.